I've been fortunate in my life to gain a civil rights education from people who lived the struggle. I worked for a decade in the 1990s at the Southern Regional Council, which is an Atlanta-based civil rights research think tank. And there I met an amazing array of civil rights leaders, many of them from Alabama. Sophia Bracey Harris, who as a young teen integrated the high school in Wetumpka and had her house firebombed. One of the leaders in that group was Senator Hank Sanders from Alabama. And Senator Sanders had a good way of putting what's important in a nutshell. And he said, racism is such a powerful force in this society, we have to keep jumping on it with both feet to hold it down. My first involvement in West Alabama was actually on a voter registration campaign in the 1980s. And at that time it seemed quite possible to me that we would move ever upwards in terms of progress. And now I think we see setbacks. My teaching and my research have focused primarily on the environmental history of the South. I've been particularly interested in environmental justice campaigns. The research I did for my book, Baptized in PCBs, was based in Anniston, Alabama, where residents there have experienced firsthand the horrors of toxic contamination. I teach specifically about how people have thought about the environment over the course of the nation's founding and history. I teach about ideas about nature, how people have changed their conceptions over time, and how that makes a difference in public policy, how we think of it. If we think of nature as an unlimited resource to be exploited, then we might not have protective policies. So I teach about environmental protection and the kinds of changes that have been made over the last century and a half that bring us to a cleaner and healthier world. At the same time, we've been industrializing, and so some conditions have gotten worse. We have cleaner air and cleaner water now than we did in 1970, but we also have a disproportionate burden of toxic waste in communities of color and low-income communities. And so those are the kinds of things that we talk about in class. What are the policies that have been put in place? What are the kinds of changes that are needed? Of course, climate now is on everyone's mind as the crisis of the 21st century. If we don't take serious action now, soon, immediately, we'll see a serious degradation of life on the planet. In my teaching and my research, I think about what do students need to go out and make a better world. And they need to read and study, they need to think about what other people have done to make social change, but there's no substitute for a first-hand experience. So I've had the joy of taking students around the state with institutional support to be able to see what's going on firsthand in Scottsboro, Alabama, for example, with the new Scottsboro Boys Museum and Cultural Center, where they're commemorating really the Black Lives Matter campaign of the 1930s, where 9 young defendants were charged, falsely accused of rape, and became a global campaign to free them. I've been able to take students to the 50th anniversary of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, in Raleigh, North Carolina at Shaw University, so they could meet Julian Bond and John Lewis and other key leaders of the civil rights movement who were so instrumental in changing the South. Democracy is under serious threat at the moment. We need to prepare a generation of young people to renew democracy, to take the kinds of things they're learning, the things they're studying and reading, and take them out into the world. We need to prepare students to make a better world, and then to learn the kind of critical thinking skills, to analyze the situation, and then to make their own choice about the path forward.